I'm Margaret Carrero, and I'm a biology teacher who's had a long-term interest in gardening and native plants. So why don't you follow me out to my backyard? The really great things, I think, of flowering plants, even when they're not flowering, is that they have such distinctive and different foliage. And just the foliage itself is so interesting. The patterns, the shapes, the texture and colors. And you can see that there are various ones here, from ferns to other plants. But look at this umbrella one, and I bet you most of you recognize this plant, this umbrella-looking plant. Whenever it makes two leaves, take a peek underneath, and you'll see the prize, the Mayapple flower blooming. It's just beautiful. But you have to, again, you've got to look under the leaves. What you're looking at right now are the blossoms of wild geranium just starting to open. There'll be more later. And right next to them are one of my favorites, the dwarf crested iris. It becomes a beautiful ground cover at this time of year when it blooms, but the leaves stay all year, except winter. And you can see that it can grow in patches. One of the things about having a natural garden is that you can start off planting things where you want them, but plants will sometimes tell you where they'd rather be. They will reseed in areas where they'll do better and become more natural looking. They are interdigitating, you can see. Nature does not plant in rows. So you can start off putting them and suggesting where you'd like them to be, but kind of roll with it sometimes, where they wind up telling you where they'd rather be, and they look so beautiful when they grow in with each other. Right here you see the last remaining blooms of my Virginia bluebells. Not only are these beautiful to my eye, and I value them for their beauty, but they are exceptionally important for pollinator bees, like our native bumblebees that come out very early in spring, hungry, looking for flowers. So the shade garden here gives me an opportunity to provide the very species of plants and flowers that our native pollinator bees will need first thing in spring. Some other plants I have to give a little interest here is Jack-in-the-Pulpit. And you can see Jack in his pulpit, and this is a fly-pollinated flower. And over here you can see the first blooms of sweet Cicely. It's a woodland plant in our forests. And a Trillium. I love this particular Trillium. It's so big and beautiful red flowers. And Trillium, of course, means in three parts, and you can see 3 leaves and 3 petals. Up on the patio section of my garden, I have 3 plants of the stunning, I think, eastern shooting stars. And bumblebees really like them too. So in this spring garden, that's more of a shade garden, what you may have also noticed is that all these flowers are out early, which feeds the pollinators, but not only that, they have come in different colors and very different shapes. For example, there was the Virginia bluebell with those bell-like flowers that force certain pollinators to really dig for that nectar down deep. And there's ones that are yellow and white. That's because different bees and bee-like flies, syrphid flies, and butterflies even, are attracted to different colors and different shapes of flowers. So that's one of the goals when you're setting up a native garden, is to try to provide variety that doesn't just please your eye, but can please set the dinner table for all these different pollinators with different colors and different shapes of flowers that different ones prefer. Well, I hope this view of my backyard garden has given you some ideas about your own garden. But I know you may think this just sprouted up yesterday. It didn't. This was 15 years in the making, and I chose, however, to do a large garden to begin with. You don't have to, especially if you're not as knowledgeable or comfortable starting out replacing lawn or with native plants or vegetables, etc. Just start small. It can be a 10 by 10 foot patch where you're experimenting. Don't be afraid to experiment. And don't be afraid to fail sometimes. And any gardener already knows that. So, what I'd like to do now is welcome you all back in a few months' time so you can see the rest of the garden out there as it has changed. You will see an incredible difference. It'll be in riotous bloom, as I said earlier. And so I do hope you'll come back.